And then the creative side of our business serves customers from small businesses to enterprises, whether they need content for their website or their Instagram or a billboard. And our customers come to us for high quality content, but they also come to us because we can save them time in finding that high quality content. We can save them money, and we can save them legal risk. And this is true for both camera shot imagery as well as generative AI. We have a library of over 550 million images and videos and 2.8 billion searches per year across the world. And we get all of our content by working with exclusive contributors. And they really use our data and our visual expertise to figure out what to shoot and what to capture in the world. We also have a research program called Visual GPS that reports on visual trends. It combines data from industry surveys of consumers, as well as data on our search and our download behavior on our site to really understand visual trends, visual insights, and giving those out to the world. So, speaking of trends, let's look at how visual trends have changed over the past 10 years. Take a second to think about how your work environment has changed over the past decade. Where were you working physically 10 years ago? In an office, in home, at a desk? Who were you working with? What did your colleagues look like? What technologies were you using? With our visual GPS research, we can actually look at the top downloads at Getty Images for the concept of work over the past 10 years. In 2013, the top download was of very happy corporate people. You have this very light white blue lighting, people with cheesy smiles. In 2014, the top download for the concept of work was an image of white men working with devices. In 2015, the top download was social media icons. And in 2016, we start seeing in the top download a picture of less formal groups working together. So you can see that as time goes on, the pixels that reflect this concept of work are beginning to change. Moving on to the top download from 2017 through 2019, we see a lot more emphasis on women in technology, women coders, and women leaders. We also have a lot much warmer environments and lighting. And then in 2020, when COVID started, the top download is, of course, of people working on Zoom, on virtual video calls. And that 2020 picture is now pretty normalized, but what would your reaction and emotion to it have been pre-COVID versus post-COVID? The pixels change over this time, and so do the emotions of the audience that are taking in that visual information, because their context and their experiences have also changed. So in 2021, the top download reminded us of the dark depths of working from home. In 2022, we started seeing more virtual overlays, and the first time a woman of color is in the top download for this work concept. And then in 2023, the top download demonstrates that we're returning back to offices with happy employees as companies encourage their workers to go back in. So over a decade alone, the pixels of this concept of work have changed drastically. And you might be asking, how does this relate to machine learning and AI? Well, in computer vision, and AI machine learning relies on training data. And if you're working in the image or visual space, that means you're working with pixels. So as our imagery evolves over time, so does our training data. And let's look at a few more examples of these trends. So this is the trend around energy sources. In 2014, you have a popular picture around oil rigs. Today, a popular picture from the concept of energy is related to electric vehicles charging on the sidewalk. So the pixels have changed from oil rigs to cars, electric cars. Another trend is real emotions that has changed a lot over the past decade. In 2014, a popular image maybe would have been of an overly cheesy smile of this woman being expressive out of the car. Whereas today, a popular image might be of a man in a movie theater with this real emotion of a very delicate tear rolling down his cheek. And so the pixels are very different from the cheesy smile to the tear. And today we're better at capturing these more nuanced emotions like stress, surprise, playfulness, shyness, curiosity, and disbelief. Another trend is mental health that's changed a lot over the 10 years, especially discussion of mental health as it relates to the workplace and the work environment. Instead of a dark room of someone sitting alone, we have shifted to visuals of someone in their day-to-day life really grappling with the realities of mental health. And then, of course, our depictions of family have changed over the past 10 years. We have a lot more multi-generational households, multiracial families, LGBTQ plus families, and the pixels that capture those differences change. So looking at this progression of work from 2013 to 2023, we see the change in pixels. What do you think 2024 will hold? What do you think the theme of the top download in 2024 this year will be? Do you think it'll be camera shot or AI generated? It could be either, and it really doesn't matter. What matters is the context of the storytelling and if it's evoking an emotion. If you're at home every day with your kids, this picture might probably evoke one emotion. But if you're at work every day with your kids, this picture might evoke a different emotion. And it's the human creator who is the one that has the creativity, the one that's going to have the context of society and be able to spur that emotion using their creative expertise, whether they're behind the camera lens or engineering a prompt. So, what we need for creativity is a creative person with an idea and the tools at their disposal, whether it's a camera or generative AI, to bring that idea to life. And our customers want to use generative AI. When we surveyed our customers, 66% of them have used generative AI to create imagery, and 25% of them are using it for work or commercial purposes. So our customers want to use these tools, but they're also expressing concerns about image generation. In this survey that we've ran twice last year, we found that 38% of customers have legal and licensing concerns. 34% of them have concerns that the images don't look authentic. 33% are worried about photographers' compensation and jobs. 28% have ethical concerns. And 26% are concerned that we don't use real people, real objects, and real places. And these concerns are increasing, they're growing as they become more familiar with the technology. We ran this survey twice over the past year, and all of these concerns increased in terms of how important they were to people. So we had a challenge. We wanted to bring generative AI to our customers for the power of creativity that it unlocks. But we wanted to do so in a way that reduced their concerns and their risks. Our customers are heads down being focused on being creative and telling stories, and they don't need to be burdened with questions of legality and authenticity. So we built our own image generation model. We call it Generative AI by Getty Images. It's powered by NVIDIA Picasso. It's currently available on both our sites, Getty Images and iStock, and via our API, and includes modifications like in-painting and out-painting, and is also available for fine-tuning on top of the model. And in building this, it was important to us that the model be commercially safe, that it doesn't generate brands or logos or celebrities, so that we remove that legal concern for the customers. It was also important to us that this model be trained on licensed data so that we can compensate creators of the training data. And this is a key point, compensating those creators on a recurring basis so that as we make money, they make money. We also wanted this model to be realistic and authentic and reduce diversity and inclusion bias as much as possible. To achieve all of this, though, we had to rely on only licensed training data, which for us measures in the around 200 million images available to train on. While some other companies have been relying on web scrape data, which measures in the billions. When we set out to do this a year ago, naysayers were saying it was impossible to develop a high-quality model on only licensed images. And we set out to disprove that and did so successfully. And others have too. Pixar and Bria are both partners with clean generative models trained only on licensed data. So what did we train on? We trained on these 200 million high-resolution photos and videos with an additional 6 million every quarter. But it's not the quantity that matters, it's the quality. These images reflect a range of topic areas from lifestyle to healthcare to industry. And they include authentic people across a range of ethnicities, ages, genders, regions, orientations, and body shapes. We have high-quality captions and keywords that are manually added, reviewed, and edited, and backed by model releases. And the data set is fully licensed, meaning the creators are compensated, and they're compensated on a recurring basis. And the images in this data set are also reviewed to remove any brands, logos, celebrities, products. So in short, our model doesn't know who Taylor Swift is. So I mentioned one of the concerns of our customers is around generating products. Our customers can't use brands or logos in their imagery. If Adidas used a picture of a Nike swoosh, that would be a very big problem. But when you use image generators that are available out in the industry, that's exactly what can happen. So these are images from other image generators. I'm not going to name them, but samples from a couple others out in the market, popular ones. And here you can see the Nike swoosh is being generated for a simple running shoe prompt. And this is happening because many AI generators rely on the images scraped from the web. And if you look at some of those popular web scrape data sets that are often relied on, the word Nike shows up a whopping 6.6 million times in the captions. Even other generators that rely on public domain data sets introduce this same legal risk, because public data is filled with a lot of these brands, trademarks, and intellectual property. But if you use that same prompt in our Getty Images model, you don't get any Nike swooshes for running shoes. Our training data set isn't contaminated with trademarks or brands, so it leads to a clean, worry-free model. And this legal question is such a concern for our customers that we took it one step further and implemented a second line of defense of prompt blocking. Blocking for specific words like Nike or Taylor Swift, as well as various machine learning models that can further block prompts based off of the contextual awareness for things like not safe for work. A second concern our customers had was lack of authenticity and representation in AI generators. What do you think we'll get if I prompt industry generators for the word doctor? You can see here the results for the word doctor in popular image generation engines, and you see all white men. This type of content won't work for our customers, it's not inclusive, and it doesn't reflect the world. What do you think we'll see for nurse? All white women, and the images are pretty sexualized. So as a technical community, I think we can do better. This isn't authentic, and it's not a reflection of society. So to address these issues in our model, we relied on the Edify model architecture, and we had the benefit of more diverse content in our library. Our exclusive contributors and photographers put very intentional effort into capturing people from different backgrounds in real-world settings, and that shows up in our training data. So what you can see here is the distribution of underrepresented ethnicities in our data set in purple, versus web scrape data sets that are popular in gray. And for these comparisons, we're looking at how these words show up in the captions. And so you can see in purple we have a more diverse mix of underrepresented ethnicities of our images, which helps the model learn that doctors can in fact be Asian, Indian, and Hispanic. Clearly, though, we still have more work to do. The ideal would be to have all of these buckets be equal representation across all ethnicities, so we still have more work to do. But regardless, when you prompt for the word doctor in our system, you still achieve a mix of genders, ages, and ethnicities. And if I prompt the model for researcher or AI scientist in robotics, same thing, more genders, more ages, more ethnicities. And I certainly appreciate the woman showing up here. So the third biggest concern for our customers is not compensating photographers. And I share this concern too, as an artist outside of work. And let me explain why. As society evolves, for example, more people using electric cars, as we saw in the trends earlier, the pixels depicting our world change drastically. Photographers capture those moments, those new pixels, and that content is used as training data. But when it's used without license and without compensation back to the original creator, back to the original photographer, it disincentivizes photographers from continuing to shoot new content, new ideas, and new creativity. So when the next shift in society occurs, we run the risk of not having photographers to capture our world, to capture what our families will look like, to capture our relationships with robots, to capture our homes, our clothes, and our cars, because those will all inevitably change. And the list goes on. And so we need creators. They're essential to a much more vibrant and progressive society. And for the researchers and scientists in the room, you too also need these creators. Without them, you probably don't have the training data to build generative models of tomorrow. But why does this training data matter so much? For those that don't know, image generation models use what's called a diffusion model. How it works is the dog image on the top is the original camera shot image, the training data. And the machine adds noise and then tries to remove noise based on the semantic information in the caption. And it generates the dog image on the bottom. But maybe there are some deformities in that generation. So the machine looks at the difference between the two dogs and updates the model weight so that it better learns the details of the concept of dog. So the original image is critical to teaching the model. So if you have a picture of someone charging an electric car for the concept of energy, the model is going to learn that concept. And so the pixels of that image are really important. And so we can look at by taking our training data set and comparing it to web scrape training data set, we can actually see how a lot of these trends and concepts are showing up in that data. So purple is the Getty Images data set, gray is the web scrape data. And you can see that concepts with these trends, things like sustainability, climate, clean energy, electric vehicles, all words coming from the trends research, represent a higher proportion of our data set. Similar trends for working from home or remote work, much higher frequency in the captions of our data set versus web scrape data. And same pattern for mental health, like depression and anxiety. And so what we believe is that training data that reflects society leads to generative models that better reflect society. When the training data contains contemporary topics, authentic people, and diversity, that leads to a model that produces results of higher quality for these concepts. And so we can see that in action in the outputs. For a prompt like father changing diaper, which looks much more realistic in our generator, as seen on the left, compared with other generators in the industry as seen on the right. For a prompt about an older woman mountain biking, the images on the left are much more realistic, less cartoonish, have more natural lighting. In a prompt about a woman who is confident and has tattoos, the facial expressions are more natural and authentic representations of beauty. They're higher quality and they're less cinematic. In a prompt about wind turbines in the night sky, our results are more realistic and less illustrative. For a prompt about green buildings and integrating plants more closely into our infrastructure, the results are more realistic and look like a real building you might encounter on the street. And a prompt about LGBTQ family celebrating their 5-year-old's birthday, our generator produces more visually relevant results with more realistic lighting. Those are just a handful of examples. And so what we did was we scaled this up. We took 50 words based off of our visual GPS research and trends and created 500 prompts based on those trends, then produced and generated 10 images per prompt, both in our model as well as other industry generators. And we ran an aesthetics quality score across these. And so higher number is more higher quality, more visually, aesthetically appealing. The Getty images results are in the purple, and you can see more of a shift to the right. And if we can take this same set of images that were generated in our model versus industry models and look at an FID versus clip plot, which is an industry benchmark, and we can see if we compare these generated images with real contemporary images for the same trends, we can see that the Getty images generated images shown in purple have a higher clip score, meaning a higher semantic adherence to the prompt, as well as a lower FID score, which means the generated images have a closer distribution to the set of real images. So this tells us that our model, because it was trained on our creative library, which has content added to it daily, leads to a model with higher quality and more realistic outputs for those topic areas. Okay, so we've talked about creatives with an idea. We've talked about the tools and making them easy to use. And our view in this space is that it's the talent of creative people that come together with this innovative technology. That's where the creative magic happens. So let's look at what creativity can emerge when you do this. Imagine you're doing a campaign about sustainability in our future. What picture would you create? Would you create a picture of a future you wanted? Would you create a picture of something you wanted to avoid? Would you use a camera? Would you use generative AI? You probably didn't have this specific picture in mind, a group or waddle of penguins marching down a city street with smoke in the background. What emotion does this picture evoke for you? Was this generated with AI or taken by a camera? This picture would be nearly impossible without a camera. You would need to fly many penguins on a plane to a city, block off the city street, and take this picture. And so this is an example of a highly creative concept that a human creator developed and then used the tools at their disposal, in this case generative AI, which led to the creativity that evokes a particular emotion. As another example, what emotion does this evoke for you? The creator of this image had a specific intent of an aging person tenderly interacting with the cute little robot. Is this a future you want or don't want? With generative AI, creators can iterate through ideas and concepts really quickly, put them out into the world, put them out in front of people, get feedback and reactions and perspectives on futures we want to build or not build. So in these two cases, generative AI is a really highly effective tool for visualizing something that's either unseen, really high cost to produce, or allows them to iterate with speed through different ideas. But sometimes the traditional camera is still the best tool for the job. I mentioned in the survey at the beginning that 26% of people wanted pictures with real people in them, especially when you're depicting real emotions and things that capture our evolving society. So for example, if you're a skincare brand talking about a product to improve acne, you probably need visuals of real skin, of real acne, and real improvements. Or an example of mental health at work. We still want to capture these moments with real people, experiences, and real emotions with a camera. So just as the pixels that reflect our society have changed over the past 10 years, they'll continue to change over the next 10 years. And I, for one, want a world where we continue to capture that world, capture changes in our fashion and our transportation, capture changes in how our families look, capture nuances and changes in our emotions. And we need creators to continue to create and be creative in that world alongside AI, and we need to compensate them to ensure that they do. We aren't talking enough as a technical community about how we also need this data to become the training data we use tomorrow. We still need real visuals and current visuals. Otherwise, these models that we're building are not going to keep up with society, and they'll become stale. We already have model collapse issues with an over-reliance on synthetic data, and that will perpetuate if we don't continue to create real content. Imagine you're doing a campaign about living to be 100 years old, which is a possibility for many. You want a picture of a son, of a father, of a grandfather, and a great-grandfather together in a kitchen to inspire people to lead healthy, fulfilling lives. We don't have a lot of pictures in the world today of 4 generations together. So you turn to generative AI to generate this picture. But this is what you get, and this is true for all generators that I tried. If you prompt for 4 generations of people, you either get 3 people, as you see on the left, or you get a 4th person added as another parent, not as a 4th generation, as you see on the right. The model doesn't have enough training data of 100-year-olds because not enough pictures of 4 generations together simply don't exist yet. The only way to ensure that training data of tomorrow is to pay creators to continue to create. So to ensure the vibrancy of our creativity into the future, no matter the tool, we as technologists have to pay photographers, creators, both for their continued creations and for the training data that we all rely on. If you in this room have a model that you use commercially, that you've built, maybe it's, no matter your modality, maybe you're using images, maybe you're using videos, maybe you're using audio, I encourage you to license your training data and pay for it, because most likely it's critical to the continued supply of that data for the model that you build tomorrow. Thank you.
So thank you, Andrea, for wonderful, insightful talk. Thank you so much. And there will be no live Q&A. So if you have a question, please come to see Andrea to the front of the room. So let's thank Andrea again for wonderful talk. And this will close this session. Thank you for coming.